Okay. All right. So we're in Hanukkah mode over here. Obviously, we'll try to connect the parsha a little bit, right? The Torah portion to it a little bit. But trying to get my head, my brain, my heart, my my mode into Hanukkah mode is what I'm trying over here. And we talked last week about prepping ourselves for the holiday. If we do a little studying about the holiday, it'll just change the way we relate to the holiday and the way that we exist in the holiday. And so we're going to give that a shot and see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. So before we talk about any particular topic, I figured I'd open it up. Anyone have any particular thoughts, questions, laws, or whatever it is about Hanukkah that you want to clarify or you want to share, or an idea you already saw? Um, just opening up the room for questions and conversations before we might not even share an idea. It could be we'll ask the right questions and we'll just talk about that.
Oh, as the representative from Las Vegas, maybe we can talk about gambling and the link.
Dreidel world.
What's that?
In the dreidel world.
Yeah, and the link to Judaism with gambling. Maybe we can link that.
Great question. Okay, all right.
Do you
That's
think
one topic.
Caesars is opening up the dreidel room for a week?
I mean, maybe.
They're only serving latkes and donut beer and what else?
Donut beer. That's it. Yeah.
All right. So as far as there are a couple of things that come to mind with questions. The only laws that I'm aware of in Chanukah is the law to light the candles. Are there any other laws?
Yep, we'll talk about one of them. Great idea.
Very good. And then sufganiot are just, is it tradition? What leads to our love for jelly donuts?
I got one right here.
Yeah, well, trust me, I got this thing.
I don't need another jelly donut.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. All right, good. We'll get to both of those. Any other thoughts, questions?
Why is it that for some reason one night of the holiday every single year, never planned, I always end up at a Greek restaurant? And why is that so ironic? I mean,
Jason, you asked me that question like 2 years ago. Remember, you had some workers that were Greek, and you were like, "Should I make them work harder over Hanukkah?"
That's right. That's right. I had an employee from Athens, and
Oh, that's right.
I gave him a lot of work over Hanukkah. That's right. I don't know. For some reason, it's like my friends who are not Jewish, they'll invite me out for dinner one night of Hanukkah, and it's like has to be a Greek restaurant of all places.
Is Greek food greasy?
No, it doesn't have to be. No,
I don't think I've ever had Greek food.
yeah,
I've seen it in the movies, but I don't actually know what it is.
no, it's not very greasy. No, not
Whatever,
particularly.
my Greek wedding, whatever that is, whatever I guess the food they serve there, but otherwise I don't know much about it. All right, so let's jump in a little bit. Any other thoughts, Will, Mr. Shapiro?
No.
Questions you'd like us to deal with?
No.
Well, I heard a rabbi say that that this year maybe we could put the menorah outside, and you slide it, outside. But I guess sometimes you have to be careful where you live.
Exactly. So that's another piece that Talmud talks about that tradition. Certainly, there's some people like you're saying, like Will's saying, it used to be the way you did it actually is you would have your mezuzah would be on the right side or left side, depends where you're facing, right? You'd have the beautiful idea of actually lighting the menorah on the outside, and then those that couldn't do it on the outside, they actually some people used to light it right inside their door. Then it became more like, put it on your dining room table because it wasn't safe because they would see the candles. Nowadays, a lot of people will put it, at least in America, will put it in the window facing the community.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be like it was big discussion. Mitchell was talking about some of the laws that are involved. There's a lot of detailed laws about how to light, where to light.
It isn't some aspect of it too is that if you have a window or a doorway or something that's facing east, you're supposed to put it to that window or door, not just facing the community, but facing Israel.
So for Hanukkah itself, they talk about that in the synagogue. There's a particular location where the synagogue should have the menorah place, like inside the sanctuary when they light the menorah, and that's also based off of where the menorah was inside of the original temple. So that would be based off of where you should have it inside the temple. At home, off the top of my head, I don't recall a particular, but I will look that up for you, Jason, just to make sure before I say that. I'll look it up to make sure there isn't a particular place to put it. There's directions in which to light it, where to start from,
Yes,
and those kinds of things. But in regards to the actual placement, the placement they talk about at home was always a placement that had to do with, don't put it on the same side as the menorah, as your mezuzah of your post. Put it on the opposite side. This way, you're when you walk into your house and you walk out of your house, you're surrounded by mitzvos. So you're the concept of having your house filled with mitzvos. It has that concept to it. They talk about if someone lives in a corner lot. So you've got streets that are on both sides like that, which actually I have here where I live. Nowadays it wouldn't apply as much, but it used to be a discussion whether or not you actually, if you had a second gate or opening on different sides of your house, whether or not you were obligated to have two menorahs out. This way, for people that are walking on both sides, that walk on that side, they don't, unless they walk on this street. So there was that concept that's involved. In regards to the menorah itself, just to go to some of the laws that we think about, or have actually become commonplace in America, is very often to use those colored candles that they sell, right? Which it says in the box it lasts for 30 minutes, which is nice, and that's you want it to last 30 minutes into darkness, into the nighttime, which makes a challenge when it comes to Shabbos in particular. It also makes a challenge as you progress throughout the Chanukah holiday. You have a challenge because if your menorah is on the smaller side or on the tighter side, right, then when you have a lot of candles up there, that generates a lot more heat, which makes your candles melt faster, and they might not actually last the half hour.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting thing to think about. There's people that if they only have a small menorah, that they're worried about that happening, or they test it out, they'll actually keep their candles in the freezer, which will give them a little more time, not a lot more time, but a little more time. And the other challenge is on Friday night, right? We don't light fires on Shabbos itself, which means you're lighting your menorah early, right? Because we light our candles for Shabbos. Hey, Larry, we light our candles for Shabbos before Shabbos starts. That's 18 minutes before twilight zone. The twilight zone is really this time where it's not day, it's not night, it's kind of this iffy time, and actual the actual full-time darkness isn't until much later. So really when the time that Shabbat would leave, we keep Shabbat for 25 hours, right? So it's really that when you light your candles before Shabbat starts, when you light your Hanukkah candles, you really need to make sure that they're going to last a half hour into darkness. So this is a challenge that actually comes up. It's not talked about enough. For me, I light, we didn't talk about it, but there's this idea of beautifying a mitzvah. We talk about it when it comes to lulav and esrog. When we talk about Larry's tefillin, we're talking about getting not just getting tefillin, but getting top-notch stuff, right? Getting things that are really beautiful, to mahader it, which means to beautify it, to enhance it. So that would be for lulav and esrog. That would be to get a nice box for your esrog, to get a nice carrier for your lulav. For a menorah-wise, it might be to have a silver menorah or something unique or pretty or artistic, right? That not necessarily about money. It's about being enhanced, being nice and pretty. When it comes to tefillin, you can get tefillin that are written by anybody, or get someone that's very careful with his writing, very careful with the way the boxes are pressed together, right? Clean, smooth, right? All those kinds of things are on there too. And when it comes to the best way to light, and this is an interesting topic to talk about, I'm not sure if we'll get to it tonight or not, because we could go for hours about Hanukkah. This is one of the few times where the Torah, of course, let me take that back a second. Hanukkah is a rabbinical mitzvah, rabbinical holiday, right? Let's just make sure we got that part. Now, with that being said, when the rabbis instituted the holiday of Hanukkah and the lighting, they actually instituted this concept of there being different levels, of being able to accomplish the lighting part of the holiday. Technically speaking, if someone's really poor or they're traveling and for some reason they can't get all the candles or whatever it might be, lighting one candle a night would be the mitzvah. The best way to do it, right? If you can't do that, there's multiple levels. We could talk about it another time. We give a whole separate class about it one time. But the best way to do it is to go ahead and really have a menorah or a Chanukah that's going to express the number, what number night it is. So that means the first night you light one, second night two, which most of us do traditionally. But in regards to somebody being in a tough spot and they only have the option to light one candle for whatever reason it is, right? They're in the middle of Alaska, went on a cool camping trip, and they said, oh my gosh, I got a backpack in. How am I going to carry all this stuff? What should I do? Just bring one candle for each night, and you would fulfill your mitzvah. But they instituted the holiday to have these different levels over here. And we could talk about some of the expression, what that expresses. But the best way to do it really is not with candles, actually with olive oil.
Well,
with an oil that burns nice and clean and pretty. Why would we use olive oil? Any ideas why?
This virgin olive oil is the
why
press.
Specifically olive oil?
Because you had plenty of it in Israel and Lebanon.
Yeah.
Right? But why? Why is there plenty of it?
The trees grow olive trees, right?
Right.
Because it grows in the desert.
Right? It goes in the desert, right? But they used the original miracle that took place was with oil. So the best way to express the excitement of the holiday and to best express the miracle is going to be with the way that it was done originally, which was with olive oil. So that's the best way. Now, the original olive oil that they use, and it's interesting, people like to ask, why 8 days, right? We could have fun with that for hours, right? Why 8 days? So, yes, we'll just keep it simple. They found, all right, this historically, right, the story, right, they found one little flask, that's the right word, of oil, right? And it was only enough for 1 day, and it lasted all 8 days, just like your cell phone is on 10%. Okay, fine, very good. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, great. But, right, but why, what's so significant? Why 8 days? Why did it have to last for 8 days? Because the process to make the appropriate special kind of oil for the temple, beginning to end, was an 8-day process. They actually traveled to the area where Asher lived. That's where the best olive trees were. That's where they had the olive really were. And if you look in the Torah, Asher's place is where they dealt with the making of that oil. And they had something called Shemen Zayis Zach, which means super duper pure, clean oil. It's actually from the original crush. That first, and it spills out. That first thing, before you get any of the sediment, any of the junk gets mixed in, that first crush, that first splash of oil, they would use that for the burning. Now, it happens to be if you look it up and do Google searches and stuff, like what burns the cleanest, the smoothest, right? It doesn't crackle pop, all those kinds of things. Olive oil is phenomenal. It really is and you can tell how good your oil is by how nice and smooth and like you don't see it. If you look closely, you'll see the fire's alive, but really it's a very pure, smooth, clean fire, and it smells good too, right?
So you're telling me if I go to the area of my favorite supermarket and buy myself a jar of olives and I squeeze the first squeeze I get, if I take that oil, I'll be able to light my
our olives that you're going to want to buy. You have to get the ones that are actually nothing's been done to them yet, which is hard to get.
Okay.
You'd have to get those raw ones that they remember I was on my first trip to Israel and we're on a tour, in the middle of the desert somewhere in like Herzliya or something like that. And the tour guy's like, when I bring smart college kids, when we bring smart college kids, I always dare them, like who could eat an olive and keep it in the mouth for a certain amount of time. Straight up olives off the branch, man. Ooh, not so yummy. But yeah, you have to get those kinds of olives. Rabbi Klein, every year he does an olive press project, and one of the rabbis from the Kol, Rabbi Gelb, one of the rabbis in the Kol, he did a project this year also with the little kids, having them smash olives and then doing some centrifugal force to go ahead and get the olive oil separated from the rest of the junk. Lots of fun stuff you could do with it. But it was an 8-day process to get the properly processed oils from the tribe of Asher. And that's why it had to last for 8 days. It's very practical. It was not even like, ooh, look at that. It was just really a practical thing. Why 8 days? Fine. Yeah, so olive oil would be is really like the best way to do it, would be with olive oil. And that's what I do. And if you're going to go to the store and try to use olive oil this year, if you want to, you want to search for double check, because very often our oils that you'll find are mixed between different types of oils. You look for the one that's the finest virgin olive oil is what you're really looking for, pure virgin olive oil, and you can test it out. It's cool. It's really a nice gig, but it's like salad dressing. It makes a mess everywhere, so make sure you have something near there to clean it up. Okay, that's olive oil. That'll be the best way, really the best way to do it. By us, I'll use olive oil. One of my kids will use olive oil. My son coming home from yeshiva will use olive oil. Nowadays, of course, they make it easier for you. They have these pre-filled ones you can buy, but they're just expensive. So I'd rather also, and this gets to another topic we talked about last week. I think we talked about it last week. You watch the clock also, because I know we really can go for a long time. Make sure we answer all of our questions. Now, back to Mitchell's question, then we'll talk about what I was about to talk about. Mitchell asked about sufganiyot, right? Latkes is the same question, right? And the idea is the miracle is with oil. So there's an idea to eat oily foods.
Greasy fried foods, yeah.
Yeah, you really could buy latkes, stick a wick in it, light it, and you probably would fulfill your mitzvah of Chanukah too. You certainly could do that. But that's where it comes from, Mitchell. I'm not exactly sure how many generations back they started the donut thing. But definitely the concept of eating oily foods, that goes way back.
That part I get. I wasn't sure if because I always hear it's a jelly donut as opposed to.
That's like State of Israel started that, and if you talk to the Moroccans, they've got their types of things they like to fry. It's just become that. And as they say in the Rugrats Hanukkah edition, what the biggest miracle of all is the fact that we've been eating latkes for thousands of years and we're still here to tell the story. That's the biggest.
That's why
that's a Hanukkah miracle. If I
have so many cardiologists, is what that's.
Yeah, it's like my pacemaker. This year, my pacemaker just put in if I'm allowed to eat so many donuts. I can test it out, right? But that's where the idea comes from. I'm sure there's people, Mitchell, that have done some hardcore essays about the exact source of the sifganiyah, and but I have not done that. I can tell you what it talks about in the halacha, and there's an idea to eat oily foods and dairy foods, by the way. So if you want to fry something dairy, whatever you want, fry your mozzarella sticks.
Fried cheese is really good. Deep fried cheese is really good. Yeah,
yep.
Sure.
So the idea of that is actually one of the miracles when the war that was happening. A fellow Heli Fornis there's an idea. Not everyone knows this, and any ladies who listen to this, you should make sure you know this halacha. There is actually a halacha that that specifically women should not be doing any sort of work for the first half hour of the candles being lit, because one of the major miracles of the holiday is actually that a famous young lady named Judith. Okay, Judith went ahead and killed one of the generals. She snuck her way in. She got herself into the enemy's camp, and she seduced the general by feeding him lots of cheese, which made him thirsty. So she gave him wine, which knocked him out, and then she killed him and took his head back across enemy lines, back into the Jewish quarter, showed them his head. Enemy got scared, freaked out, ran away. Way to go, Judith. So because of that, there is a special mitzvah. There's a special idea that women don't do particular things during that first half hour. You heard it here. All the husbands that want to get upset at me for this, you can send me an email or a text. But my mom used to sit on the couch for when we first lit the candles. My mom would sit on the couch and enjoy, and we would have to clean the house up and make sure dinner was ready and all those kinds of things. So that's how it worked.
I'm pretty sure she made that whole story up, and that's not coming from any Talmudic or. I'm sorry to have to tell you this,
Jason, this has been
Rabbi, but
recorded, and your next
I'm pretty
we're gonna
sure
send
your
this,
mom made that whole story
we're
up.
gonna
She's
send
a
this to your
genius,
next
is
date.
what she is. A genius.
There was no Judith. She did not exist.
Yeah. That's another one of the another piece of the holiday puzzle. There's so many puzzle pieces over here. Let's just deal with one or two other pieces. Then I know it's already 8:02 or 9:02 or 6:02, whatever we're up to. So just another piece. Mitchell asked before, is there any of the other parts of the holiday besides for the lighting the candles or the oil, wherever you're from? And so there is, we add into our prayers something called Al Hanisim, okay, which means in our Amidah, the silent Amidah prayer that we say. So we add that in all three of the prayers we say a day. We add in this Al Hanisim prayer. Is actually a phenomenal lot. We could have spent the whole night just about that prayer. I thought about it actually. I actually have it saved on my screen to pull it up, but we're not going to get to it. So then we add that into our prayers. Also, the Birkat Hamazon, benching, whatever you like to call it, grace after meals. So if you had bread and you're going to bench over the course of Hanukkah, there's that paragraph to add in also. Okay, it goes into the thankful part of the blessing that we say. The other piece is also a prayer piece, is in the mornings when we pray, we add in the Hallel. The Hallel service, which we have on Seder night, and we say it on Rosh Chodesh and on holidays. So every day of Hanukkah gets the Hallel. And also we read the Torah every day, also on over Hanukkah. So that's another part of the holiday. There's an idea certainly to rejoice, an idea to eat some good food. That is definitely part of it, because it is a celebration of a miracle, but not just the miracle of the oil. There was also a war that was going on, right? There was also a war that was going on. Thing to remember about Hanukkah versus Purim is Hanukkah was a holiday that was really ideological. They wanted us not to be different. They wanted to take our Torah and say it's just another wisdom on the bookshelf, just like all the other religions and wisdoms. Is nothing unique about Torah. Jews don't think you have a special place or a special, connection with God. All of that part of it, Jews, you're just like us. Sorry, guys. And that's why they took away. They took away Shabbos. They took away circumcision, right? They wouldn't let us have Rosh Chodesh, that idea, that concept of Rosh Chodesh. They took that away from us also. You couldn't study Torah. That's where the dreidel comes from, right? Exactly how far back and historically, but the idea was that they would hide places to study Torah. If you were caught studying Torah, they would kill you. So, but they had to continue studying Torah. That's what us crazy Jews do. You tell us no, and we say yes, and do it anyways. Which is, I don't know why people keep hiring Jews. But the idea was that the kids and their teachers would sit and study Torah. Soldiers would come in, they'd hide their Torah books, and they take out some sort of toy to play with. So that's where this tradition of the top came from. That's the concept of a dreidel. In regards to gambling with a dreidel, I think if you're not Sephardi, if you really want to put real money down, if you're not Sephardi, it should be fine. If you're Sephardi, it's not as simple. It certainly would seem. But most people are just playing in jest, so it's not a big deal. I do know people that actually, I have some friends that get pretty intense about it. And, over there, there's a certain level of buy-in, and they do have their hardcore, instead of their poker game, they have a dreidel game over Hanukkah. And now you can have a nice halachic discussion about poker for money. Okay, we can have that another time. Okay, what other questions were that we not deal with? What did I miss? I think we got them all, yeah?
I think we got them all.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just end off with one last thought to kind of carry us into the holiday. I think it's very unique how when we talk about Jewish holidays, we can talk about the same concept of Purim also, but Purim, we could give it. Purim would have a different answer. But the question is, when the rabbis set up the holiday, why did they not set it up like most of our other Jewish holidays, where there's, one shouldn't go to work and one can't drive we don't use electricity, and those kinds of things. We don't do the malachos, those 39 productive creative activities that we don't do on Shabbos and we don't do on Yom Tov. Why they not set up the rabbinic holiday in that fashion? Obviously, 8 days would be too long for that practically. They would never do that to us. That's first of all. But outside of that, why is it something unique about it? So one of my favorite ideas, I think I've shared this before with other people, but I just think it's something to think about as we travel through the holiday. The rabbis recognized when they established this holiday, this was going to be the holiday that was going to carry the Jewish people to the end of the Second Temple, and then they knew we were heading towards exile at this point. They knew it was inevitable we were going to get there, right? We were heading towards a time where we're going to be dispersed throughout the world, and our biggest challenge was going to be to hold on to our Judaism and to hold on to our involvement and to be actively involved in our Judaism. So what they said is like this. If you make a calculation, let's keep the half-hour calculation. We're talking about the light should be lit for at least a half hour. That means, technically speaking, outside of services we talked about before, but in regards to the menorah part of the mitzvah, right, which is really the obligatory part of the holiday, that means over the course of the holiday, if you stay with your candles, you could be only actively involved with the holiday for how much?
Half hour
8
times
times.
8.
4 hours, right? Over the course of 8 days to be involved with the holiday for 4 hours, that's nothing, right? So what's going on? So the idea is like this. They said, look, when you're going to go into exile, when you're going to try to practice your Judaism in whatever environment you find yourself in, you may only get a little bit of time with your Judaism. Make sure that when you have that time with your Judaism, you make it real, you make it intense, you make it mindful, because it needs to be super concentrated, super saturated, so that it spills out into the rest of your life. Take your time with your candles, take your time with the light, and make sure you bring it into every other aspect of your life. And that's what I think is a major theme of the holiday, to take that light and bring it into the dark parts of our lives, bring it into the darkness of the world. So when you go to work, take your Judaism with you, right? When you go on vacation, take your Judaism with you. When you're in a tough spot, take your Judaism with you. And whatever that means, what it means to pray, what it means to keep Hashem, be aware of Hashem. You're wearing a baseball cap, you can just put a yarmulke underneath it, and you'll know it's there. No one else knows it's there. You have a pair of tzitzis and you hide it in your pants, but you know that you have it, right? Whatever. You get to keep kosher in the slightest way, or, quietly, about whatever it might be. Take your Chanukah, take your Judaism with you. Take that half hour and spread it to the whole rest of the day. Take your half hour and spread it to the other 23 and a half hours of the day.
And
right?
don't go to a Greek restaurant for dinner.
And if you do go to a Greek restaurant for dinner, make sure you tell over the story of what the Greeks did to you and to us, and make them feel bad and tell me you should get dinner for free.
That's what I'll make sure to do. Yes.
I think, and I think, what about when I'm sleeping? No, you can sleep in a Jewish way, in a mindful way. Doesn't mean to snore, right? What does that mean? That means that when you go to sleep, you're mindful. Why am I going to sleep? I'm going to sleep so I have energy to do the will of Hashem, to live like a Jew, right? That's how you go to sleep Jewishly. And you can eat Jewishly, and you can dance Jewishly, and you can partay Jewishly, right? But there's a way to do that. You want to take that half hour and stretch it throughout your day. And I think that's part of the way the rabbi set it up, with that recognition that there's going to be tough times. You might only get a half hour with your candles. And, over the course of Jewish history, man, there's times where they lit it for a half hour and blew it out because it wasn't safe, or they had to save their oil. Think of all the stories of the Holocaust. People lighting their candles and their menorahs, and they're lighting a potato or whatever they did, right? So this is an idea to keep in mind, and think about the blessings that we have, that we don't just have a half hour. It depends where you live. You want to light outside. I still light indoors. I understand if someone says I'm not lighting, it depends where you live. It really depends where you live. Got to make sure it's being safe too. Don't be stupid, right? Don't be, we're not making protests with our menorahs. It's not what it's about. It's not what it's about. We want to bring light into our world, right? And then it helps us to bring light into the bigger world. And so I think these are just some of the pieces of Chanukah we can talk about and think about. And obviously, if you think about any other questions, feel free to forward them along. Give me a call, text me, whatever it is. Voice note me. I'm happy to give you a response. But these are just some of the ideas to keep in mind. I don't think we're going to get together next week. If you're in town, feel free to stop by our house at this time next week. We'll have an open house Hanukkah party. And God willing, we should merit that. We should walk away from the holiday not just gaining weight, but gaining something spiritually from it too. And we'll be in touch. God willing, it should be an amazing holiday. Really, it's very powerful. We barely touched it. We barely scraped the surface of the holiday. There's much more there. So enjoy.
Did we ever figure out if you're going to be well enough to do some modification of your annual burpee challenge?
Yeah, my daughter and I are hoping to put together a little video that will challenge people.
Amazing.
And I'll hopefully modify. I might just do
squats.
I might have to do squats. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Happy Hanukkah to you all.
All right. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, guys. Enjoy all that good stuff.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Good Shabbos. Have a meaningful Shabbat.
Yeah, absolutely. You too.
Take care.
Good Shabbos. Larry.
All right.
Good seeing you guys.
All right.